In today's episode, we are going to cover for developers and builders why they should build on QRL Project Zond to make their blockchain apps post-quantum secure, whether they're building something brand new or moving something over from Ethereum. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the QRL Show, the place where you come for the crypto and stay for the quantum. On today's episode, myself and my co-host Michael Strike are going to be having a show that is geared towards developers and builders. So if you are a developer, a builder, or you have a friend or a colleague that's interested in building apps in the blockchain space, this short episode is going to be beneficial to watch from start to finish because we're going to cover some of the main questions and unpack why you should consider building on QRL Zond, and in that, why developers are choosing to do so as we come up on mainnet and beyond. So if you're a quality developer, there's obviously a lot of options out there and potential places for you to build. So we want to help you determine if it makes sense or not to build on QRL. So Michael, it's good to have you with me. I'm excited to cover a few of these main questions.
Let's go over these. Yeah, these have been questions that have been coming up in the community. So let's answer those. Let's go through those and rock and roll. Let's do it.
Yeah, and some of these are just helpful questions for people that are deciding if they want to build on QRL. So it's good to cover a little bit of a range of them. So the first one I want to start out with here is someone has an existing blockchain project, and maybe they have a wallet, I don't know, an Explorer, DeFi tool, you name it. How do you drop in quantum resistance into their existing blockchain project? And with that, why should they do that with QRL in Zond?
So here's the great part is you don't need to develop your code specifically for Zond because we follow almost all of the rules of Solidity minus some addressing and some other tweaks. So you don't have to develop it for Zond or QRL. You really just have to write your smart contract, your EVMs as if it were, and port the code over to QRL, at least the next iteration, which we call Zond. So I'll refer to it as QRL right now, but for this conversation we'll be talking about the Zond Hardfork code name. So in order to do that, projects right now can just continue as normal. Once we're live with the next iteration of QRL, you'll take your code, you'll change some of the addressing so that the addressing is post-quantum secure. There'll be a few other tweaks likely, and then you'll be able to deploy directly to our chain. Now you'll be running in that scenario if you want to go post-quantum secure, you will be running on both Ethereum chain and on our L1 chain. So you'll be running in two different places, and there might be some interoperability things that need to be addressed. But as far as getting your code running and getting it post-quantum secure so that it's classically secure and quantum secure, there is no based on government standards of post-quantum cryptography. There's no other easier way to do this than what we have coming up. This doesn't exist in any other blockchain project. We're making it as simple as possible using the Solidity-compatible, like 99% compatible language, so that we can already utilize the expertise of Ethereum's broad range of talented developers.
Yeah, and you coining it as very extremely EVM friendly is the best way to put it. The next question, which is going to overlap but add more nuance to this, is you've just touched on the simplicity and the ability to take work that's already been done and being able to bring that over in a way that's complementary and brings a whole new beneficial element. How do you now take an existing project that's on Ethereum and make it post-quantum secure? So how do you port over from that existing ERC20 into Solidity compatible? How do you move it over? I know it's going to, obviously there's, different aspects that are going to be different per what the application is, but from a high level, how is that going to work in terms of someone has an existing project, they want to move it over and make it post-quantum secure? A couple questions in one there.
Sure. So I talked to Kashal about this a few weeks ago, and it should be relatively easy. You have your source code. I'm not a developer. I'm an engineer, but you have your source code that you use. You'll use our Zond compiler for the next iteration of QRL, and then you'll deploy it to our chain. Some of the source code changes that you'll do will likely have to be the addressing, and there might be a few other changes. So with the original source code, tweak it, change the addressing, compile it with our compiler, deploy it to our chain. So far, that's it.
Got it. And is there anything else that, as far at this moment in time, I'm sure obviously stuff's dynamic and it changes, but that's really the gist of it. Is there anything else people should keep a lookout for, or when they're thinking about
Yeah,
their current application, anything in terms of that, either something for them to keep in mind? I know we might touch on that in a couple
there
questions.
are some
Um,
caveats. Yeah, there are a
yeah, and
couple
we should get
caveats.
to what about benefits in terms of someone has something. What are some of the most exciting? Um, maybe that goes just right into the next question, which is, does putting in a project on QRL, does that, how does that make it post quantum secure? Someone has an existing project in the space that is great, might be a great application, might be awesome project in its own right, but it's currently not uh, it's not quantum secure from a sufficiently powerful quantum computer. What takes their project when they bring it over, and what makes it quantum computer secure, as best as you can
Sure.
sum that up for the listener that might be asking that same
So
question?
anything running on Ethereum is not post-quantum secure. Even if you were to take code and XMSS wrap it around some code that's post-quantum secure, you'd be able to store the data, but that doesn't mean a quantum computer of sufficient power couldn't just empty the wallet. So
Mm-hmm.
anything on Ethereum is not post-quantum secure. So there are a couple caveats. When on the QRL chain, we provide the classical and the post-quantum computer security uh, within the chain itself. So things that are on chain. If there are off chain calls to, for example, oracles or other off chain calls, whatever APIs might be opened off of the QRL chain, those might be done through ECDSA, and we can't guarantee that that data itself, once it goes off chain, will be post quantum secure, because that call could be interrupted if it's still using legacy cryptography. But as far as which does bring some interoperability challenges, but at the cost of post quantum security. So this is kind of one of the costs you have to pay, and it adds some complexity to the interoperability and the off chain calls. But anything written to the chain that is on the chain that has gone through post quantum secure mechanisms is secure.
Gotcha. And you mentioned this in a couple questions ago in terms of, would the projects be running in separate chains? So if someone has an existing project, maybe
Yeah,
they're deciding on moving it over, can projects run on both separate chains? And what are the caveats there? I know you just touched on a couple other
yeah,
caveats, but if you could
yeah.
build
So it
on that
depends
just a
on the
little bit.
project. Uh, it depends on how that project is written and what its dependencies are. If its dependencies are just tokenized as on chain, then you can you could forklift that code over with a few changes and do it that way. If your project's making a lot of off chain calls, there's going to be some increased complexity with that, and we'll start to know what that looks like, I think, in first quarter of 2026, what those complexities are. So, but the good news is you don't have to develop your project right now for the next version of QRL. All you're going to do is you're going to continue developing, as the ecosystem is already doing, in Ethereum / Solidity, and then once we're in testnet right now. Once we are out of testnet, you'll be able to tweak that code and then drop it into our chain, and you will have two separate contracts. Right, one would be on Ethereum if you wanted to stay in the mainstream Ethereum as well. But if you want to be able to tell your customers that you have a provably quantum computer secure option available, You can say just you know you can use this chain as well with the same functionality.
Got it. And now, if someone's watching this right now, whenever they might be watching it, and if they're still waiting for mainnet to be here, what are some steps or recommendations you have for them in terms of what they can do to be proactive in setting themselves up? So when it is here, is there some stuff they can build into now? Can they jump into some documentation? Any recommendations for jumping into the community? I know I've asked a couple parts there, but what would you recommend to that developer, that builder that's watching this right now and they're eager to, they maybe become aware of the quantum threat and they're like, hey, I want to be on the forefront of this. What are some next steps today that we can have them, where you would point them to?
We are in testnet. Jump into our Discord. We've got we've got a vibrant community in there. Lots of people that are developers, speculators, engineers, people from all walks of life. But if you want to, we like I said, we're running the testnet. You can spin up a node. We'll be doing a future video on that relatively soon. And as far as the walkthrough, the testnet itself is running. But you should be able to do that now with some instructions from our dev team.
Right now, we have a few links that we're going to include in the show notes for you to go to the QRL.org /Zond. That's a good one to jump to. There's a couple other links we'll include in the show notes for you to, you can check out, jump into at your own leisure. Obviously, if you're viewing this video, there's a good chance you're viewing this on YouTube on our QRL Show YouTube channel. If you sort back through our older videos, we have a plethora of videos that are on the topic of post-quantum cryptography. Our project's been in the space since for many years. And if you're a developer, you're a builder that's considering building, this is the right time to do it now. So, Michael, any parting words? I think that pretty much sums up this part. We have some exciting videos coming up on QRL related to Zond. So, any last words?
Yeah, just some closing thoughts. This thread is moving forward. You don't even need to necessarily believe in quantum computers being sufficiently powerful because the standards are already changing. Governments across the world are already changing the standards. Corporations are following governments, and retail open source is following corporations and governments as well. So everyone is already upgrading their cryptographic standards. There was a post like 4 or 5 days ago where Vitalik referenced an article that by 2030 there was I think it was a 20% chance of sufficiently powerful quantum computer breaking RSA 2048, which is having a 20% chance of being broken by 2030. That's just 5 years away, and that assumes that we stay on our linear path of progress. Things in the quantum world seem to happen exponentially. So this is a real issue. We've been talking about this for 5-6 years now, and it's getting a lot of traction as far as people realizing what this quantum threat is. So
yeah, we've been doing it since day one in 2018, even further back from the white paper, and so
we'll
it's just going to continue rolling.
Keep doing it. So that's all I got.
Perfect. Well, those of you viewing, if you're a developer or a builder, jump in to the conversation. Just as Michael said, QRL Discord, jump into our documentation, watch content here, and introduce yourself, start building, and just look out. And appreciate you watching, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you.